Hey ladies, I have read your practicum logs number 2, and I have looked at portfolio part 3 as well and provided feedback. Just like before, all of your feedback for your practicum logs are going to be found in Typhon. You're going to get your points in the grading rubric, but everything else will be in Typhon. All of your feedback for the portfolio will be in the rubric that's associated with the assignment. This is one of my favorite things to do. I often save this assignment until kind of the end of the day so I can just relax and kind of peruse who you are and how you have wrapped up your portfolio. The idea behind this assignment is that with each iteration, you would polish and improve and tweak and modify as you went so that when you got to part 3, you would wrap everything up and you would have a final project, a product that would be suitable to create the hyperlink and send to a potential employer, or have such comfort with this platform or the online portfolio platform that you would feel comfortable using a different online platform if you chose not to use Blackboard. You're going to have access to Blackboard for a couple of months after graduation. After that, your access will be closed out. But play with this even after graduation. Make it your own. Or if you don't really want to invest all that effort into something that's going to go away in a couple of months, find an online portfolio tool. There's a bunch of them out there, and begin to develop a portfolio for yourself. I started teaching, I guess, about 8 or 9 years ago, and I didn't have a what would be perceived to be a professional portfolio. I had a great CV, I had a great resume, I had artifacts from things that I had done over the years that I had put in a notebook, but I really didn't have a well-developed portfolio. The time I realized I needed a portfolio was when I went and applied for an academic rank promotion. And there was this entire portfolio process that I had no idea what to do with. So I had a friend who loved me enough that they shared their portfolio with me, and I created a portfolio that I have since that time really maintained and polished and kind of made it my own. It's in paper format. I've started one in the electronic world, but to be quite honest with you, I'm so busy working that I haven't had time to do my own final touches on my portfolio, so I get a lot of great ideas from you all. Love that you took the time to embed videos and pictures and files that were very much your own. It's so important that you've personalized it, but also that you braved technology, that you learned something new and you challenged yourself to test the waters with some innovation. We know how critical that is as nurse educators, that we are willing to blaze a trail when it comes to innovation and new technologies. So I was really proud of how well you did that this time. It's so exciting for me to spend my evening watching you go by. So I appreciate your efforts with that. I'm going to talk for just a few minutes about part 3 of your integrative literature review to make sure you have clarity. Okay, so when we look at the Prisma model, this week, when you look at what is due in part 3, it is question number 24, 25, and 26. So before you start part 3, go back to part 1, read it from the beginning, and make sure that if for some reason you had to tweak or adjust your search criteria, your date parameters, maybe you had to adjust your keywords, fix part 1 so that it is congruent with the findings from part 3. It's not uncommon for folks to get started in their literature reviews and they start struggling for a variety of reasons, and they have to go in and they have to tweak their plan. That's not uncommon, but know that if you've done that, that you need to go in and reconcile that process. So go through part 1, get it squared away. Also, really focus on your headings in part 1. Make sure you're using level 1, level 2, level 3 effectively, because when you start part 3, it's all going to flow. Once you've got that all squared away, then you're going to begin to write part 3. Number 24. Number 24 is going to be the lion's share of part 3, and this is the analysis or the synthesis of the articles that you reviewed. You're going to have a section that's going to include the things you included and the things you excluded. The excluded list should be pretty limited, and you should be able to dispense with that pretty quickly. This is what I found that I excluded. This is the reason I excluded it, and make sure that your rationale for excluding it isn't that that it didn't say what you wanted it to say. You want to be able to be transparent in the reason you're leaving it, you're not using it, but make sure that it was a scholarly reason for not using it, and you should have had that in your rationale in your matrix. And then you're going to deal with your included items. You can do included, then exclude it. Doesn't matter which way you do it. Just make sure you've covered everything. So the articles that are in your matrix are going to be cited in your paper. You're going to organize part 3 in things that are similar and things that are not similar, kind of the compare and contrast in this section. You're going to group them thematically by things that are related. Maybe of the 15 articles, you found 5 that really focused on this piece of your topic, and they were all in agreement in what their research outcomes were. They found the same thing. That's going to be under its own heading, and you're going to organize it by their findings. And you're going to do that for all of your articles. This is not a summary of every single article. I do not want to read 25 summaries of things that of what the authors said. I want you to analyze what the author said and be able to organize it in your paper so that it addresses your PICO question. So you're going to do that part of, these are the articles I'm included, these are the things they had in common, these are the things they didn't have in common, and you're going to provide summaries of the relevance of those articles. If you do that, you will be writing concisely, and you should be able to become pretty close to the page limit. Okay, so you're going to do with included, excluded, synthesize that, and then you're going to go on to number 25. And here you're going to deal with bias and validity. This is also, you're going to find this in your matrix. I want you to address internal and external validity, and I want you to deal with bias, your own bias in your own process, in your own methodology, and I want you to touch on the bias that may have occurred throughout the articles. And folks, that doesn't mean that you go through every single article and be able to say, and this one had the potential for bias here, and this one had the potential for bias here. Don't do that. Go through and look thematically. What did they have in common? Maybe you had, of the 15 you included, maybe 3 of them had really small sample sizes. What they found was really relevant to your question, but they really had small sample sizes. Talk about that from a generalizability, from small sample size and how that influences bias. Cite those 3 articles in a combined in-text citation and then move on. Again, I want you to group these thematically. Think about the articles you read. They're not summaries of all the articles that the authors researched. They pull together the themes and work through that process in an organized way, but concisely. So 25 is bias and validity, and you're going to deal with those in that section. Again, this should have a level 1 heading, and you should break up those 4 concepts under their own headings. The last one is the 26, and this is the piece of the paper that if you think about your own behaviors when you're reading research articles, I am guilty. I don't have a lot of time, so I want the nuts and the bolts. So if I don't really want to read the whole article, I read the abstract, and I go to the very end and I read the discussion. It's the piece of the article that says, and this is why you should care. Okay? So this is what you're going to do. You're going to write your last piece of it that's going to address 26. And number 26 gives you the why what you found matters in context of your PICO question. So you're going to do summative statements. You're going to say, through my research in doing these 15 articles, or maybe you found more, I found these common themes, and these themes address this part of my PICO question. I wanted to know if this intervention was better than the current control that's common practice. And what my research found was that this new idea is great, and here's the evidence that says so. Maybe what you found was it didn't really make a difference, that the intervention versus the comparator was pretty neutral, that the literature was no one was better than the other. That's okay. Maybe what you came away with was a muddled mess. Maybe you found some that said it was great, some that said it was horrible, and you really aren't really sure. Explore that. It's okay if you did not find a definitive, aha, I figured it out. That's okay. Be honest with that and then work through that. Try to concisely be able to say, this is what the authors found, this is where they were not in agreement, and this is how I would connect it to my PICO question. Your next steps are addressing what needs to be done to further investigate the topic. This is the so what, this is why it matters, and what is the implication for nursing? How do I use this information? And then what would the next steps be if you were going to further this research? That's a really brief part, just a couple of sentences. If you are organized, if you have done a good job with your matrix, all you're doing now is brushing everything up in a pile and putting it in a paper. Okay? Do not make this more than it is. Okay? If you have questions or concerns, if you start to get overwhelmed with this, if you need a tactic in trying to approach this, please reach out to me. You are not alone in this. I am also acutely aware that we are about 2 weeks before Christmas. I don't know about you, but between being really excited about Christmas and really anxious about Christmas, I need a hot bath and a cup of tea. Hang in there, ladies. I know that it has been a very, very long journey, and you are 10 times more tired than I am because I am not currently a student. And quite frankly, I just have puppies. Your plates are full. So make sure in the next 2 weeks, in week 7 and 8, that you are resting, that you are getting your sleep, that you are remembering to eat, that you are loving on people and taking care of yourself in an emotional and spiritual way, so that when you get done with this course in 2 weeks, that you are that you're not frazzled, or maybe less frazzled. Self-care is important. We're nurses and we are terrible at it. Especially in times of heightened stress, we really do start letting go of taking care of ourselves. But you have my permission to go take a hot bath, hide from your kids under the blankets, or maybe refilling your well is snuggling with them and reading them a bedtime story. Whatever your thing is, do it consistently over the next 2 weeks so you do not become more wary. Know that I'm praying for you, I'm cheering for you, and I am really looking forward to reading your integrated literature matrices, your integrated literature reviews next week. Other thing, I don't need to see your matrix again. If there was something that I needed you to rework, I've already seen it. You do not have to resubmit it for any reason. Let me know if you have questions. Use the Ask the Professor link for the who, what, when, where, why, and how questions. Send me emails with anything personal. I hope you guys are doing okay. Let me know how you are. Take care.